Good afternoon, believers. Welcome to another life hack. Today's life hack is learn to process, not repress your emotions. And so this is actually a repost from a little bit later last fall, early winter, I suppose. And I just wanted to go over this before we dive into this second series about anxiety that was suggested by this Instagram follower. I am open to suggestions for anything that you guys want me to cover during this life hack series. And don't forget, you can always book me if you want to book any life coaching sessions with me. Again, I specialize in personal mission statements and life mapping, but I can also just help you to reach small goals as well, and set short-term goals as well as long-term goals. So let's dive right in. Here's some real-time honesty for you. I'm a happy person. And in the eyes of everyone watching, happy people are supposed to be happy. Even if no one says it to you, there's this unspoken pressure to be okay all of the time, which is not only unrealistic, it's emotionally unhealthy. If you don't process, which is to allow yourself to feel your emotions and why you're experiencing them, you are repressing. When you put your emotions away to deal with later and then never actually deal with them, they build into depression, anxiety, rage, and other stronger emotions. This doesn't have to be a thing. Allow yourself, I would even challenge you to assign yourself time daily to process the day. Recognize when someone hurts your feelings or has annoyed you. Recognize when someone has pissed you off or disappointed you. Recognize what has warmed your heart or made you laugh really hard. You'll grow and learn from yourself when you're way more intentional with yourself. And then you'll be a happier person for real. And so this is one of those things that is like really near and dear to my heart, because me being a happy person, one of the things that I've developed over the last couple of years is anxiety. And so I haven't, like, by default of like most of my life, I'm not typically an anxious person, but there have been some challenging situations that have happened in my life that have led to me developing like anxiousness and have really strengthened my reasons for like depression and things of that nature. And part of the reason why I developed depression first was because I had created myself in an environment in which I wasn't allowed to process my emotions, which is both external and internal. I was used to being a happy person. I was used to being this overtly like joyous, like overly content, like that's the person I wanted to be to the world, and it kind of boxed me in so that I couldn't be sad or mad or angry or disappointed with anyone, mostly just with myself, but that was with me in my private time, but I presented outwardly to always be okay. And this was something that people had brought up to me, but I was like, it's not a problem, this is just who I am. And after a while, I would have these really high highs and these really low lows. And it was because I wasn't addressing the underlying issues. And it wasn't necessarily that I had a terrible life. Like, I don't feel like my life is any more peculiar or any more difficult than an average teenage girl or whatever the case may be. I did have some, what's the word I'm looking for? Some peculiar circumstances growing up, but they weren't extraordinary, right? And so what was happening was I wasn't allowing myself to be sad when I was sad, or to be angry when I was angry, or to be disappointed when I was disappointed. Those feelings would try to rise up and I would push them back down because no, I have to be happy, I have to be content, I have to be this version of myself that everyone expects of me. And because of that, when I pushed the emotions down so far that they began to bubble up in other aspects at other times that were super inconvenient. And so one of the things that you do when you are repressing your emotions is you begin to compartmentalize them, compartmentalize your life. And so what would happen is that the things that made me sad or depressed or angry or frustrated, or things that didn't make me that just made me unhappy, I would compartmentalize them into something else. And then what would end up happening is it would show up in inopportune times and other situations in my life. And which ultimately caused me to start going to therapy. At the end of 2019, I started going to therapy, and I was there for like 3 or 4 months because it just became too much. I needed a safe place where I could talk and process the things that were happening to me in a safe environment. And sometimes it's therapy, sometimes it's a best friend, sometimes it's your mom, your sister. That safe space is important. It doesn't really matter where that safe space is. For me, it was therapy. And then eventually after therapy, creating safe places for myself with my friend group and my family, so that I wouldn't get to the place where I was like bubbling over with all of these emotions and having depressive episodes and anxiety attacks and all of these things. But that only came after I recognized something in me is not okay, and I need to be able to express those things. And the reason why I want to encourage you to do like a daily check-in with yourself is because biblically, that is also, again, circling back to the faith, biblically, that's what the Psalms are. That's what the Proverbs are. That's what Song of Solomon is. That's what Job, there are chapters in Job where Job is just crying out to God. And he's not crying out to God in thanksgiving or in celebration. He's crying out to God in frustration. He's like, hey, God, this isn't fair. I don't like this. I'm not okay with this. And I would rather be dead. He never cursed God. He never shamed God. But if he did, God is God. He can take it. He's big and bad enough to take your disappointment. You just have to be able to shout that out to him. If Job was allowed to do that, if David was allowed to do that, if Solomon was allowed to do that, if they were able to just take whatever emotions they had, good, bad, or indifferent, and present them to God, then who do we think we are by not allowing ourselves to express how we feel? Okay? And so that's today's life hack. Process, not repress your emotions. And this is going to kick off our series in anxiety. So I want you to go ahead and be great and stay humble. And I'll see you guys next time.